Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Charges slow to the Sri Srimad AC Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anand Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai, Nama Charger Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vaswadi Gaur Bhakti Ki Jai, Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath, Radha Ki Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Well, welcome to everyone. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Jaina Bhutale Swayam Bhupakada Mayam Bhati Chapadan Vandeham Shri Gurun Ishtadhamana Shri Gurun Vaishnava Shri Rupam Sadhuratam Sahadana Gadanakantitam Mantitam Sadvaitam Savadutam Pravidana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakantitam Hey Krishna Purana Dina Bandho Divakate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namo Radha Radhe Vrindavan Rishabh Bhanu Jai Devi Dhanama Mancha Ko Virudya Kvasiko Geta Paditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare. Thank you to everyone for being present. I think those prayers I recited were on behalf of everyone. I'm not going to be, it's an Istagosthi, we all get to speak, but it's nice to hear these transcendental sound vibrations. Start off with. And what would you like to talk about?
Maharaj, I just wanted to ask you, is the microphone on your phone, is it pressed up against cloth or anything? Because you sound a little bit muffled. And now you're frozen.
Hello?
Did you hear my question, Maharaj? I can't.
Not at all. I've turned off my video because I assume my bandwidth may not be that great.
I see. Yeah, now your mic sounds good. Before it sounded a little muffled, so I was asking if there was any cloth leaning against it or anything like that.
Nothing like that.
Okay.
Well, maybe I'll lead, and as many of you know, I've been engaged with my mother for the last few days, and it's quite instructive. A little backstory is that she just moved from Florida to a beautiful senior community in Princeton, New Jersey, with an apartment that she loved, and everything you could ask for. The people in the community are mostly very well educated and cultured people, and she was already asked to do speaking engagements, and food was great, and the staff is attentive, and she was really looking forward to this next episode of her life. And after being there for about 2 weeks or maybe 3, she suddenly she slipped in the bathroom and fell, and broke the C5 cervical vertebra, and suffered spinal cord damage, which and she recognized that this is this is irretrievable. The rehab, the option was rehab, and we'll get some of your functionality back and so on. But she understood that this is the beginning of the end, and she said, I don't want that. I've lived a good life, and I'm ready to go, which is what she told us before anyway, that when the time comes, she's ready for the call. So that time has come. She was all the more eager to go because she was in excruciating pain, or reporting excruciating pain, as we can imagine, with a spinal cord injury and a broken neck and a broken nose, and whatever. Then despite all sorts of medicine, still there's what they call breakthrough pain, so that they have to come and give you something more because it's exceeding the limit. So now she's stopped eating, and she wants to get on with it, as far as she's concerned. If the train were leaving at 5 o'clock, or 8 o'clock tonight, she'd be on it. But she has to wait till time comes. Every now and then she gets that. A lot of the time she doesn't. But that's the story. So Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi Dukha Dosha. For those of us, probably most of us, who forget. Really a reminder when we see what kind of trouble one has to go through to even to leave this world. Of course, there may be those who get to check out fast, boom, boom, boom. But there's no such guarantee. It could be slow and it could be painful. So that's and she recognized, by the way, the irony of her situation, that just when she thought she was going to be in heaven, she got thrown down to hell. So there you are. And I wonder if there, and by the way, the extra sound is because we're in the middle of a furious rainstorm here in northern Pennsylvania, southern New Jersey. And I wonder if there are any reflections or contributions that others would like to offer, or if you'd like to speak on a different topic or raise a different question, whatever you like. It's Istagosthi, anything goes.
Maharaj?
Yes.
I just wanted to say, I when you're saying that she recognizes the irony, I don't know your mother extremely well, but I know her a little bit, and based on what she's told me about herself, what I've heard about her from you, it's not surprising.
It's really pouring down, so let's just get that little bridge we're on, and then you have to speak loud, or I will hear.
Okay. I think you said speak loud. I'm not sure. I didn't catch everything you said. I was just saying that I don't think that it's surprising that she's able to be philosophical about, her situation. She's a very educated person, and she's had, I think it seems she's taken so much advantage of your association and Prabhupada's teachings through you, even if maybe, not that she's a surrendered student or anything like that, but she's been exposed to it. And I hope her consciousness stays as high as it possibly can, until the very end. It seems what you're saying sounds like she's pretty much there already.
Well, it comes and it goes, of course.
Yeah, pain will do that.
Go ahead.
Pain makes it hard.
Yeah. And I have to say that I think that she has really learned a lot philosophically just from the association of devotees. From reading back to Godhead, she's picked up a lot. I mean, I'm amazed sometimes that she's more up on things and way more than I expected, and even those things about ISKCON that I don't know from reading the BTT. But when a few days ago she said, this crate, it's finished. This crate, this body, it's finished. So, recognizing to some extent that, it's a machine and it's finished. There are limits to how it understands. If I go too much for philosophy, it's not quite ready to go. But that I think you're right. That a lot of her philosophical attitude could be great. Prabhupada's mercy, what she's gotten from the association. She also, of course, Prabhupada's the mantra machines playing around the clock. And the last thing she said to me yesterday was the Maha Mantra. So
Nice. Right.
Happy for that.
Wonderful. I had a question for you along those lines. If hope you can hear me. Can I go ahead?
Yeah, but be very loud because you're competing with the rain.
Okay. So my question is, sometimes, I haven't had association with people in a long while, but when I used to preach to newer devotees, I don't even want to use the word preach, but, you know, I would be friends with newer devotees, and unfailingly they would say something like, oh, how can I get my mother, or how can I get my parents, or how can I get my father to be a devotee? And I always felt like that kind of question was sort of, you know, the equivalent of banging your head against the wall, and maybe a kind of distraction from the business of working on themselves. So I would tell them something like, your parents have done their service. They've raised you, they've gotten you to this point that you're still alive. You didn't die in an accident. You didn't die because you know, jumped off the bed head first or anything like that. And you are alive and you are able to chant Hare Krishna. That's their service. Your service is to become as Krishna conscious as you possibly can and help to liberate them. And you can just, you know, if you just maintain a good relationship with them, it may turn out that they accept it, but you cannot do anything to make them Krishna conscious, because that's not the relationship. They're not going to necessarily accept you as, you know, guru or a guide or anything like that. So I don't know if that's true, but I would say it just to kind of get them off the platform that somehow they've got to make their parents, you know, Krishna conscious, and get them to focus on their own Krishna consciousness, which would go farther in helping their parents to become Krishna conscious. Does that make sense? And do you think that's a correct strategy?
Generally, good. I mean, sometimes there may be extraordinary parents who will pick up on it. Otherwise, very often, you know, your kids are the last people you're going to listen to. So yes, I think, and also in the beginning, we may not be so strong. So we desire for our parents to become Krishna conscious, and then we become more like them than they become like us. So yes, it seems like good advice. I sometimes give the additional advice: let other people preach to them. You know, because they're sometimes more willing to hear from others than they are from us.
Right.
And then later, you know, things may change and opportunities change. I know the thing that made a big difference for my mother was visiting India. She came to Bombay and Vrindavan and Mayapur and Jaipur, and that had a tremendous effect, giving her a new perspective on what we're about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you know, one time I had the opportunity to drive your mother to her home, I think from Miami, and she told me a very nice story about her time in India. Just one little anecdote, and Mother Kamalini's got her hand up, so I want to let her ask her question or make her comment or whatever, but if there's time, I'd like to share that story.
Okay, let's hear from Kamalini.
Thank you, Maharaj.
By the way, I'm on my little phone, so it's hard for me to see hands. So I'm depending on, I guess, you and a Kendra calling people.
Right.
Okay.
Amalini Manta, please go ahead. I think you're muted.
Right. Who's driving you, Maharaj?
Radheya.
Oh, really? Cool. Anyway, except for Indian brahmacharis and Indian men, I always ask them, are your parents devotees? And I mean, like 90% of the time, they say now at least my mother is chanting japa. If not, you know, 16 rounds, she's chanting 8 rounds. They're so influential over their mothers, especially, and their parents, and they become devotees first, and then they make their parents devotees. So that's the exception, I think, but it's very, very common that their parents become devotees, first the mom, then the dad eventually. But yeah, but I have a question off topic. Let's see, I have to take my hand down, right? Okay, lower hand. Because, you know, we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam. We have a group, and today we finished the chapter 19 of the third canto, and it was the killing of the demon Hiranyaksha. So at the end of the chapter, there's often stutis, and so many, this is so many benedictions. By hearing, anyone who hears, chants, or takes pleasure in the wonderful narration of the killing of the Hiranyaksha demon by the Lord, then so many benedictions, even the benediction of that if one listens to this at the last moment of his life, he's transferred to the supreme abode of the Lord. So anyway, like, is that still equally as auspicious to hear about the demons, Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakashipu, Ravana, to be hearing about them and remembering them at the time of death? Of course, they're in relation to the Lord, but you know how one would think, oh, well, I want to be hearing about Radha Krishna and Vrindavan and not Hiranyaksha and Lord Bor, that kind of what's the word, like not accepting it all as absolute and as equally as transcendental, you could say.
Yes. From one point of view, we want our minds focused on Radha Krishna and Vrindavan and nothing else, not even Mathura, what to speak of Dwarka, what to speak of other incarnations. But Prabhupada didn't encourage us that way, that, just hear about Radha Krishna, just, tune out everything else. He wrote that a pure devotee doesn't reject even a drop of Srimad Bhagavatam. So for us to hear about and you pegged it right, that Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, why do we want to hear about them? It's because they're connected to Krishna. So ultimately they are auspicious personalities. The narrations concerning them is auspicious, because when we hear about or think about Hiranyakashipu, naturally we have to think about Prahlad Maharaj, we have to think about Lord Nrsingadev. When we hear about Hiranyaksha, we have to think about Varahadev. So, and these Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam, there's no difference. Krishna is absolute, no difference between any of these forms. They're all equally the absolute truth, or they're Krishna. Just Krishna appearing in one dress, Krishna appearing in another dress, Krishna appearing in a third dress, but the same Krishna. So in that way, Prabhupada encouraged us, not that we just tune out all and except for Radha Krishna. Is that all right?
Jai, thank you.
Thank you, Maji.
Could you address Palashukis that have material benediction?
The Radheya asks if I could address the Palastutis, that appear that offer material benedictions. Palastuti are these verses at the end of the chapters that offer you the various benefits. One who hears this achieves this and this and this. These are Palastuti.
Yeah, may I, in the very same verse about how one could be transferred to this supreme abode, it's the very same verse. It begins saying that this narrative confers extraordinary merit, wealth, fame, longevity, and all the objects of one's desires. So they do sound like material benefits.
Yes. Someplace, I think it's Baladev Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, it says these are basically inducements, like like in a store, we're having a 20% sale or, whatever it is, some way to get new customers in the door. The new customers, or well, for spiritual life, the new customers are still interested in wealth, power, health, what have you. So the Shastra is assuring them, don't worry, just hear this topic. You'll get all of that. You'll get all of that. Whatever you want, you'll get. But of course, the real purpose is that you'll get liberation from material existence and go back home, back to Godhead. But in case you have any material desires, and we know that so many people do, so the Palastutis are covering the territory. You'll get it. You'll get it. Just like we offer to people. Like sometimes Prabhupada says, you chant Hare Krishna and you'll be happy. You'll have a healthy life, and so on. Well, we know that health is not 100% guaranteed, but as far as possible. And if you're interested in health, live with us, and you'll live a healthy lifestyle, and so on. So just to encourage them. You don't have to. No, I can't chant Hare Krishna because I have to go, chalk out my fortune somewhere. No, your fortune is here, whatever you're looking for.
Touches on the Akama Sarvakama.
Akama Sarvakama. Yes. Hare Krishna. Well, let's see. Something else?
Also,
Yes.
in the Bhagavad Gita, 641, it talks about the destination of the unsuccessful yogi. So you become born into a family. So I'm guessing, if you're still harboring material desires, but you're trying to be a devotee, then you get your wish in the next life, and you get to be born into a situation where your material desires get to be satisfied. And then when that doesn't do the trick, then maybe you get more serious about spiritual life.
Yes. In Dhruva Maharaj's life, he was desiring some material benefit, desiring a kingdom. And then when he saw the Lord gave it to him, that you'll have this kingdom, and you'll have full strength, and you'll have this, and you'll have that. And then Dhruva Maharaj, on his way back home, he was kicking himself. What a fool I was, that I have to stay in this material world and enjoy all these things that I was desiring. So he was lamenting that I was so foolish. I could approach the Lord for pure devotional service, but the Lord knew I wanted this and this and this and this. So now he's given it to me, and I have to accept it. But how much better it would have been if I simply asked to serve.
In the chat, Prabeen Prabhu is saying, one father was appreciated. Oh, your son is such a great devotee. He shall take you back to Godhead. The father replied, why should he take me? I shall take him back to Godhead.
Nice.
Thank you, Prabeen Prabhu.
Something else?
I'm sorry. Hare Krishna Maharaj. It's Akendra Das here. I was wondering if perhaps you'd care to share with us some of the things that you've done from your side to prepare your mother during this time. Just because some of us may be facing a similar situation, and would like to know what kind of steps that you yourself have taken in her journey.
Well, to be honest, we've been very much preoccupied with the material side of her journey, making sure that that she's getting medicine when she feels pain, that the nurses are moving her when she needs to be moved, getting her set up in this hospice, and all of that. There's a lot of material arrangement. My sister, bless her heart, has really worked over course, we have Prabhupada's mantra playing. And I've looked to, I see that there's a limit to how much I can push. Not that my mother just wants to be surrounded by the sages at the last moment of her life, and that Mother Gandhis will also be pleased with her so that she can go on hearing the pastimes of the Lord. She's not on that platform. But so I try to show her affection, try to help make her comfortable, and I look for opportunities to speak about Krishna. Like she has a friend called, one of her close friends is called Lila. So I pointed out to her that that's the same spelling gives you Leela. And so there's Krishna Leela. That got her. Okay, there's a linguistic hook there. So we were able to insert Krishna into the discourse. Otherwise, sometimes I'll chant with her. I'll recite the mantra, and sometimes she'll give it to me back. And did I say it right? Did I get it right? So I look for opportunities to do that. Sometimes I'll remind her of different things that she's seen, or different, that are connected with Vrindavan or with Krishna, or more generally with our time in India. And I've tried to hook her up with devotee friends, either, at this point, just remembering, do you remember this devotee? Do you remember that devotee? She has some devotee friends that she's very fond of. And so oh yes, Raghunath or Yudhisthira, and this and that. So that way she'll be thinking of devotees, thinking of devotees. There's some paint in her apartment. She has 3 paintings of these Peshwars of Krishna. One of them, I think, the small one, I may bring tomorrow just to keep in her room. So that can be another thing. I'm bringing Tulsi every day so that she can get a little Tulsi. I blew it today. I brought it and then something happened, but I want to give her a Tulsi leaf every day. She's not eating, but I'll tell her that Tulsi is allowed, so she can get that blessing. There's a devotee, Govinda Nandini, who's working in a hospital near the one my mother was in. So she was very kind and came several times to visit, and brought prasadam garlands and so on. So, I can't just preach the gospel, that doesn't work, but affection and remembrances, and sometimes I tell a little Krishna Leela, but has limited, what would you say, receptivity to Krishna Leela. A little bit, I'll tell a little something, but I can't press that very far. Let me think what else. Those things mainly. And sometimes, she comes forward, like she was taking some medicine. This was a couple of days ago, which the nurses explained sometimes produces, when you first take it, the feeling that you're falling. It's like, I guess it really packs a wallop at first, and you feel like you're falling. So my mother said, I'm falling right into your arms. I'm falling into Krishna's arms. So that was so wonderful. I'd never expected her to say anything like that. And then sometimes she's more reserved, and her more, what's the word, skeptical, secular worldview kicks in. But it's wonderful to see, how I'd say that, so many years of association with devotees, and just some connection with with Krishna this way and that way, and the influence of Mayapur and Vrindavan and Prabhupada, how they all have had such an influence on her, so that this is there. This is something else, by the way, that happens to people commonly in the last stages. Is there, apart from physical pain, people typically or often go through a sort of existential crisis or pain or experience where they may ask themselves, what have I lived for? What has been the point of my life? What was it all? And that can be extremely painful when people don't have a reason. What am I living for? Well, for nothing, fool. So that, for a person who's Krishna conscious, well, I'm living for Krishna and I'm dying for Krishna and everything is for Krishna. But for the person who doesn't have that, it can get very scary that when I look back, I see I lived for nothing. When you're smashed and kicked and broken, then you see whatever I lived for was, has no significance now. And then they have nothing more. So how terrifying or how bleak that is. And some days ago, my mother sort of did that review, such a fool I was that I lived for, for nothing. What was it? It had no meaning. It was, she used, my mom's good with language. She used some vivid terms. I forget what they were actually, how she put it. But, she said it was all a dream. I was a fool. But then she didn't take it further. She didn't take it further and think, but on the spiritual side, this and that, perhaps because she doesn't have philosophical conviction on those things. But so anyway, she just dropped it, and where is it in her consciousness? I don't really know. Is it holding her back, or is it just dropped somewhere? But these are the sort of struggles that a dying person can go through. My life is over, and what was it? Does it amount to more than a hill of beans? Imagine being at the end of your life and having the feeling that everything you struggled for, everything you strived for, everything you achieved is all ashes. It's all useless. So these are the issues that dying people can and often do find themselves confronted with. And we also may find ourselves confronted with, like if we look back and say, what was I doing? I was initiated, I was chanting, but what did I do? And, what was I wasting my time with? Instead of when I could have been more serious about Krishna consciousness, when I could have been serving, what was I doing? And, list off whatever it is that we were doing that wasn't essential or wasn't helping us. So it's not only that the karmis, foolish karmis, have to look back, but we also may find ourselves looking back at our lives and saying, what did I do? Why wasn't I more serious? Why wasn't I more focused on the purpose of my life? Why did I squander so much time? Why didn't I recognize how urgent it was to be advancing in Krishna consciousness always? So it's not just for the outsiders. It's not that they're the only ones who can be faced with the sense that our life wasn't meaningful enough. We also may find ourselves asking, what was I doing? And when I could have been so much further along, I'm only here. Venkatesh asks something. Let me, or could you read it out, Akendra Prabhu?
Sure. Venkatesh Prabhu says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, Dandavat Pranams. Could you please describe the instance when Srila Prabhupada asked you if you will not allow articles on gopis in the Back to Godhead? What can we actually learn from it? He says, after hearing of this instance from a devotee in a class, I felt he was mentioning this in a too casual manner. I thought he might not have told like that about his spiritual master.
Well, one thing is, I don't think it was me that Srila Prabhupada spoke to about the gopis in BTG. There was the instance that I remember occurred maybe in 1968 or else late 1967 concerning Ray Ramadas, who was then the maybe either editor or co-editor with Hayagriva. And way back in the early days, this is before BTG even had a color and cover. It was still started cover in color, and it was still being printed in a rather rudimentary fashion. They'd included one sketch, I guess it was, of the Vastraharana Lila, Krishna stealing the clothes of the gopis. And there was some text about it. And it said something to the effect that this teaches us that one has to stand naked before God. And Srila Prabhupada objected extremely to publishing this, that it was totally inappropriate, unfit for BTG, unsuitable for BTG. BTG is for awakening people to spiritual life and then training people in spiritual life, whereas this Radha Krishna Lila belongs to the higher stage where the exchanges of Krishna's energy in intimate fashion are appreciated. So he objected so strongly that he ordered that all of that page should be taken out of every copy. It should just simply be pulled out of the magazine. In those days, every copy wasn't thousands and thousands, it was probably some hundreds of copies, but he had it removed. And what irked him as much, or what outraged him was this message that one has to stand naked before God. My sense of the objection was that it seemed like some sort of allegorical lesson and so on, whereas Prabhupada always presented it as a fact. This is what Krishna did. The gopis are real people, and Krishna is a real person. And this pastime actually took place, not on the level of allegory, but on the level of factual activities. So Srila Prabhupada really objected to the what would you say, platitudinous explanation, that the moralistic explanation that this teaches us that one has to stand naked before God. He really didn't like that. So that was an incident that I remember. At another time, this was 1968, Srila Prabhupada came to Boston. At that time, I think Ray Rama had already left, and Satsrup Maharaj and Hayagriva were the co-editors. Yes, that they were the co-editors of BTG. And there was some discussion about the editorial policy. We met in this house where Prabhupada was staying outside Boston. And Prabhupada was talking about the magazine, its importance. He said in the future, this magazine will be regarded as Shastra. We have to be very careful. Nothing non-conclusive should be presented in PTG. But then there was some discussion about including things about the gopis. And Prabhupada said that it wasn't that we've taken a vow never to mention the name Gopi. He said, why boycott the gopis? He said they're worshipable for us. Why should we boycott the gopis? But these pastimes of, but he said very carefully, not that, haphazardly and willy-nilly, we talk about the gopis. They may sometimes be mentioned. Prabhupada gave the example, just like when I write Krishna's life, as in Krishna book, I can't leave out those sections that concern Ras Leela and Krishna and the gopis. But not that this is our only business, Krishna and the gopis. That was the question that came up earlier, Kamalini. So why boycott the gopis? But he explained that these topics of Krishna's dealings with the gopis, they belong to the higher platform, not to the platform of such a magazine as BTG. Yeah. Does that answer, Venkatesh, for your question?
Maharaj, the second part of the question, can you just give some idea on that?
Second part of the question means?
I thought that he was too casual when he mentioned it, because if that would have happened with his spiritual master, he would have been little more seriously mentioning it.
I can't pass judgment on the class that I didn't attend, and whether it was too casual or whether it was, what it was. That's not possible for me, even if I wanted to, even if I might want to do it. I can't just sit here in his car and talk about whether he spoke too casually from the Vyasasana or whether he spoke just appropriately or what. It's not for me to say.
Okay, Maharaj. So if at all we hear something like that and we feel disturbed, so what should we do in that case?
We hear excessive. Well, sometimes you just say, well, what can we do? We can't control everyone, and thank God it's over. But if these things are becoming, what's the word, egregious, if they become too much, then we may approach our temple authorities and say, this is going on and shouldn't we do something?
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you for the wonderful description of that instance of Prabhupada explaining what is how to approach the topic of gopis in Back to Garden. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Something else? Okay. No other comments, no other questions?
Tulsi Priya has her hand up.
I have unlimited comments, Maharaj. I just don't want to hijack the discussion here. There's two things. One is I was remembering you've met my mother, and she was very happy to meet you. And she had such a favorable impression, so I can just imagine what your relationship with your own mother is like, considering how impressed my mother was by you. But one thing, my mother did start chanting Hare Krishna at some point after she met you. And she would just chant one round a day because it was very hard for her to chant. She would chant very slowly. And she had the Maha Mantra taped, print out of the Maha Mantra taped on her wall. She had a little Gopal Krishna baby, little resin Murti sitting on top of her altar along with Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. And every day she would chant her one round, and she had a housemate, a man who would, help out around the house, and not like a boyfriend or anything, but they were friends. And he, paid rent, and she had somebody to keep her company. And she would make him come in and chant, and she would chant in her room, and he would chant with her. and then he would chant the rosary, one round on the rosary. And she also he came with us to the temple once in Miami, and she literally put her hand on his back and forced him down to the ground to bow down before the deities. Anyways, the reason I'm bringing this up is that he later was diagnosed with lung cancer, and she overcame her distaste of hospitals and places like that to go and visit him in the hospital. And he was going through terminal restlessness, which I don't know if you've ever read the article by Subhangi Mataji about how her father had terminal restlessness, and she claims he saw the Yamadutas. Anyways, this man, he was a very, nice man, but low class. He used to hang out in bars, was not, nothing, no higher sentiments in life, no philosophical bent. And when she went to see him in the hospital, he was going through this terminal restlessness. And she said that he was just babbling and chanting Hare Krishna and saying the Hail Mary prayers in his terminal restlessness state. And this is after a relatively brief time of being exposed to the Maha Mantra just by my mother chanting one round in her room and making him sit there and listen. So, I mean, I'm just saying that, I mean, if it's possible for somebody like that, I can't imagine what your mom would have going through her consciousness when it comes down to it. It just seems impossible that she wouldn't have some kind of, realization. And I mean, we all have to work through stuff before we go, and there's probably a lot of purification going on. And if I can take this moment to tell this story, she told me how she traveled with you in India, and she mentioned that you would be invited to people's homes, and I can imagine what the hospitality was like and how they would treat her. And she said at one time they introduced the children of the family to her, and they bowed down and touched her feet. And she said, she asked you, well, what are they doing? Why did they do that? And you explained to her that it was a sign of respect, that she was, a senior person and the mother of the guru or a mother of a sadhu. And she was very impressed by that. And then she said, when she was getting ready to go back home, you went with her to the airport. And she had prefaced all this by telling me that, she was not extremely pleased when you first became a devotee. She said at first she liked it because she thought, okay, good habits, you won't get involved in, bad things that are going on in the culture at that time. But then she said she wasn't so much in favor. She said she would have chosen a different path for you in life, but then she was later on impressed by how things went. But she said, so later on, after she had gone through India with you and you were at the airport together, that she said, I'm proud of you. And that you said to her, I'm proud of you too. And that you bent down and touched her feet. And the way she said that, it meant so much to her. It meant so much to her. And so I just really, I never forgot it, obviously, but it was a beautiful story.
Thank you so much, Tulsi Priya, your kindness. Everything's the mercy of the Vaishnavas. That's if my mother's got any, special credit, I think it's by the mercy of the devotees. So, thank you.
And someday I would like to share the story of how my mother met you, which is very.
Oh, okay.
It's
One
very.
day we'll do a mother's session, maybe 1 or 2 or 3. Okay, well, thank you so much. We've reached my staying place, and I think, well, let's see. Thank you. Maybe we can end up with kirtan for a few minutes. That would be.
Sure.
And I may drop off because of my connectivity here, but thank you all again. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
You have to keep. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hold there.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
You guys have that.
Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I should say, Prabeen Prabhu posted in the chat box from the Antya Lila 1914. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the topmost gem of all devotees of mothers. He rendered service to his mother even after he had accepted the vow of sannyas. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Thank you, Maharaj, for being with us. Thank you, everybody, for participating.
Raj, you need to unmute. Can you unmute him? Okay. No.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
all right. Thank you all again. I think we'll end here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
So, thank you to all the devotees.